Forget New Year, New You. This season is about slowing down, locking the doors, and cozying up at home with the one you really want to do nothing with. Your dog. After the holiday chaos, those quiet nights with a blanket, a podcast, and your pup feel like the reset you actually need. Ollie helps make those moments easier with fresh protein-packed meals made from real human-grade ingredients, so your dog can enjoy some quality comfort food too. Choose from 5 recipes and get a personalized plan for your dog's needs. Meals arrive perfectly proportioned with a scoop and storage container, so serving is fast and mess-free. And with Ollie's in-app on-demand health screenings, supporting your dog is easy, ensuring more cuddles for many years to come. Visit ollie.com/truecrime and use code TRUECRIME for 60% off your first box.
This episode contains stories involving violence against children. Listener discretion is advised. There are over 100,000 cold cases in America. Only 1% are ever solved. This is one of those rare stories.
Agents from the KBI, agents from the FBI, and members of the Wichita Police Department arrested Dennis Rader.
On February 26, 2005, the Wichita Police Department holds a news conference.
For the murders of Joseph Otero, Julie Otero,
and tells the world they have caught a serial killer.
The bottom line, BTK is arrested.
This is the Investigations Division.
Lieutenant Ken Landwehr has hunted BTK for most of his career. Cold Case Files was granted unique access into the investigation that ended in an interrogation of Dennis Rader.
Why don't you just say it? Yes, you guys know. What else you want to say? Say who you are.
It's very difficult to sit across from someone that you've chased this long, that you despise the way I despise Dennis Rader.
Say who you are. You're BTK.
I'm BTK, basically, that is it. Who are you? Say it. I'm BTK. And after that, the floodgates just open.
This is Dennis Rader speaking at his plea hearing.
If you read much about serial killers, they go through what they call the different phases. That's one of the phases they go through as a trolling stage. You're looking for a victim at that time. But once you lock in on a certain person, then you become stalking. And that might be several of them, but you really home in on that person. That's the victim.
Dennis Rader's arrest and conviction provided the final chapters to a story that began 3 decades earlier with a little boy and a knock on a door.
He asked me, "Are your parents home?"
In 1977, Steve Relford is 6 years old when he opens his front door and finds a man on the other side.
I told him my mother, she's sick in bed. Then he proceeded to come on in. Started pulling down the blinds, turned off TV, reached in his holster and pulled out a pistol. About that time, my mother stepped to the bedroom door. What the hell's going on here?
The man herds Steve, his brother, and sister into the bathroom. Then he runs a rope from the doorknob to the sink so the children can't get out.
I stood on the tub, I think, and looked over the door. As I did that, I seen my mother being stripped, her hands bound behind her back, plastic bag over her head, rope tied around her neck.
15 minutes later, the house is quiet, and Steve is able to force his way out of the bathroom.
He had already left. I run around to the other bedroom, seen my mother laying there. I think I tried to untie it. I couldn't. Call the cops. Call 911, somebody. My mom's dead.
26-year-old Shirley Vian lies face down on her bed. She has been bound and strangled. Richard Lemunyon is the former chief of the Wichita Police.
The detectives went out, and when they came back and reported, they said that there's a real possibility that the Shirley Vian case is connected to the Otero case.
The Otero case refers to a nightmare from which Wichita had never recovered. In the winter of 1974, police walked into the worst crime scene Wichita had ever seen. Its first quadruple homicide. Joseph and Julie Otero were found strangled to death in their split-level home. Their son, 9-year-old Joey, lay bound and strangled in the next room. In the basement, 11-year-old Josephine was found hanging from a pipe.
He bound her feet and he bound her hands behind her, and he pulled her little panties down and he cut her little bra off in the back. And while he was pulling her up, he hung her like you would in a hangman's noose. And as she was dying, he was masturbating close to her and got some semen on her leg.
Larry Hatteberg is a Cake TV news anchor in Wichita.
This just didn't happen in Wichita, Kansas, out here on the prairie. A killing like that, a ritual killing like that, happened in New York or in LA, but not in Wichita. And that really shook up the people. That scared people to death.
Wichita police questioned 3 suspects in the Otero case. Before they were ever charged, detectives were called to the public library to read a letter found stuffed inside a book.
This letter is very clear to tell us, you have the wrong people. You need to stop looking at them. You need to come back and focus your attention on me. I am the important one. I'm the one that's responsible. And you need to get a handle on this one because this could happen again.
The letter provides details on the Otero murders only the killer would know. The author also wrote, "The code words for me will be bind them, torture them, kill them. They will be on the next victim."
People were very careful in terms of they would not go home alone, specifically women. It became just a way of life. I mean, no one was necessarily mad, but everyone was certainly aware that we had a serial killer.
3 years after Otero, detectives believe the man known as BTK has returned. Wichita mobilizes quickly. BTK, however, moves even faster.
Yes, you will find a homicide at 43 South Pershing, Nancy Fox.
At 8:18 on a December morning in 1977, a phone call comes into Wichita police. At the other end of the line, a voice telling police where they can pick up a body.
What is the address? 43 South Pershing. Correct.
A team of detectives dispatches to the home of Nancy Fox and finds the 25-year-old bound and strangled with her own pantyhose. Semen is collected from her nightgown.
He wanted to brag about it. He wanted to make sure that we, the police, found it undisturbed, and he wanted us to see his work and wanted us to realize the type of quote-unquote monster we were dealing with.
The monster is a serial killer known to Wichita police as BTK. In his need for publicity, detectives see an opportunity to engage the killer in dialogue and perhaps catch him.
The thought process was, we won't give him credit for it, with the idea that this will prompt a communications from him. And it did.
Good afternoon. This morning, Cake TV was contacted by the person who police say they believe murdered 4 members of the Joseph Otero family in January of 1974.
On February 10, 1978, Cake TV leads its broadcast with a letter it has received from a killer looking for publicity.
BTK began today's letter with a question. How many do I have to kill before I get a name in the paper or some national attention?
It was a game that he was playing. He wanted recognition. He wanted us to know that he was in control and that we had no control over him. And this was the message that he was trying to convey to the community.
BTK decides to raise the stakes for police. In his 4-page letter to the news station, he lists 7 of his victims, 6 of whom are named. Victim number 5, however, is not.
Well, we were confident that number 5 was Kathy.
Kathy is 21-year-old Catherine Bright.
Bright was stabbed to death in her home. The victim's brother was shot twice in the face by the attacker.
4 years earlier, Bright was found in her home bound and stabbed 11 times. The murder's MO fits BTK.
It comes back to the method of operation, the way he broke into the house. He broke the back window, he cleaned the glass up, he cut the phone wire.
With the letter to Cake, BTK generates the attention and the fear he needs. For the next year, however, the killer goes quiet, with no bodies, phone calls, or letters.
The hysteria that spread over the community a year ago at this time has died down. The chief does want people to be aware that BTK is probably still around.
I have no reason to doubt that the individual will strike again, assuming that he's still free and walking around.
There have been a lot of crimes in society that have never been solved. Is this going to be one of them?
I think we'll solve the crime. The question is, when will we solve the crime?
There were discussions as to whether or not a given case was actually a BTK victim.
In 1982, 8 years after the first BTK murder, Wichita forms a special unit to reinvestigate the 7 victims. Detective Jerry Harper is part of the unit.
That if he in fact took his show to the road, that was going to be a major problem.
The team returns to the evidence files and begins to search, earning themselves a nickname, the Ghostbusters. Their secret weapon is the newly developed technology of DNA, led by Dr. Stephen Brady.
DNA actually, I guess, came in through me because I have a brother-in-law who's a forensic pathologist, and so I mentioned that to the task force, not knowing much about it.
The Ghostbusters send biological evidence from 2 BTK cases to one of the few labs in the world doing forensic DNA testing.
We were probably the first people to use DNA in the United States, I think.
He was able to send some of our samples back, and he was able to get a DNA profile off of it.
The BTK profile is one of the first ever developed in a homicide investigation in the United States. Unfortunately, it is also of limited value to detectives.
There was no searchable database or anything like that back then, but it was an opportunity that we had that we could positively eliminate someone with that profile.
Ken Landwehr is the youngest member of the Ghostbusters. For more than 4 years, he helps to develop hundreds of leads, but never makes an arrest.
I was the last one standing. I was the young kid. When that started, those guys were the experienced ones. They were the ones that taught me how to be an investigator. I mean, my first case was the BTK homicides.
With no solid suspects to offer, the Ghostbusters are eventually disbanded, and most of Wichita believes they have seen the last of BTK. Most of Wichita, however, is wrong.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
Wichita police confirm BTK is back.
On March 24, 2004, local news station Cake TV leads its broadcast with a bombshell. After more than 25 years in apparent slumber, the monster known as BTK has awakened.
A letter sent to the Wichita Eagle last week is believed to be from the serial killer. It is a story we first broke on Cake yesterday.
This is actually the photocopy that I made. It was, the return address is Bill Thomas Kilman, BTK, which was kind of a clue.
Hurst Laviana is a reporter with the Wichita Eagle and recipient of what police suspect to be a new BTK letter.
It's a single sheet of paper, 3 photographs, a driver's license, and there were some markings on the letter.
The 3 photos are of a woman's dead body. The driver's license belongs to Vicki Wegerly, who was killed in her home in 1986 and suspected to be BTK's 8th victim.
Where is he and where has he been? 2 questions police hope to answer.
We do believe that BTK is in Wichita.
Lieutenant Ken Landwehr worked BTK as a young investigator in the 1980s. Now he heads up a new generation of detectives.
It was just grab a pack of leads and move on.
The strategy was to try to keep up with the tips.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the first things I remember was the fact that, of course, when the calls started coming in, a lot of them were our same suspects that you guys had kicked around for years.
DNA from the Wegerly homicide is matched to a genetic profile found at several of the earlier BTK murders. Over 1,500 men in Wichita are questioned and sampled for DNA. None, however, match the BTK profile. Meanwhile, the killer himself is busy writing letters.
When the letter arrived, the receptionist immediately noticed it and sent it back to the newsroom. The police were called, and in no time a detective arrived to retrieve the letter. Police have asked we don't reveal everything the letters contain, but here's what we can show you.
2 months after BTK resurfaced, he sends a second letter to the media. This time, it is the outline of a novel.
The first page said the BTK story. It was typed, followed by titles of chapters.
I think he liked presenting his case in the media, and I think he liked Cake TV a lot.
Susan Peters is an anchor for Cake and an object of fascination for BTK. He sends a series of messages for police through her station and expresses his concern for Susan and her co-anchor, Jeff Herndon.
The message shows personality. Sorry for Jeff and Susan's colds, it reads, referencing comments by Cake's news anchors.
It was eerie. It was very eerie when he wrote to us and said, I hope Susan's and Jeff's cold get better, because naturally everyone's more afraid for the female than the male of the news kid. I mean, that freaked me out. To be honest with you, it freaked my husband out. It was a little bit frightening, and at that particular time, I started taking extra precautions and extra security precautions.
BTK will decide that he wants to write his own story, which will start this series of letters.
Landwehr has no choice but to take in the messages from BTK.
He's going to send them at his discretion to us or to other members of the media, and we'll play this game with him.
Obviously, by today's coverage, BTK is watching and has been for years. The message has been received and passed on. Our job, as always, is to be the eyes and ears for the public. As good journalists, we are here and we are listening and communicating.
We need to keep him talking. If we can keep him talking, we're going to catch him. And that's basically because he will make a mistake.
On July 17, 2004, BTK delivers a letter to the Wichita Public Library, writing, I have spotted a female that I think lives alone and/or is a latchkey kid. I think fall or winter would be just right for the hit.
We know sooner or later this guy will probably kill again if we do not stop him. And we've got to get there first. And we're just trying to keep him talking.
3 months later, he sends a chapter of the BTK story, Chapter 2, an alleged biography of his life.
He claims the following. He was born in 1939, which would make his current age 64 or 65. His father died in World War II, and his mother raised him. His mother started dating a railroad detective when BTK was around 11 years old.
Landwehr continues to go public with the letters, hoping to encourage more communication from the killer. What the lieutenant doesn't release to the public are photographs sent with the biography and taken by BTK of himself.
He will send us pictures of himself in 4 different locations of where he's tied up to trees, in practice autoerotic, where he's actually buried himself in a grave.
BTK also begins sending dolls, symbols of his victims. One is supposed to be Josephine Otero, the 11-year-old girl he hung from a pipe in 1974. Another doll represents victim Nancy Fox, murdered in 1977.
He would use those dolls to fantasize about what he did to victims. We have Polaroids of him dressing up with his dolls and tying them up, and taking pictures of himself and the dolls in a mirror. That was part of his fantasy life.
Post Toasties cereal box, on the front of the box, the initials BTK.
Over the next 3 months, BTK continues to drop all sorts of packages, with chapters detailing his kills. Each one, detectives hope, bringing them a bit closer to their killer.
Lieutenant Landwehr and Detective Kelly Otis arrived at the scene. After looking over the box, more officers were called to the area.
He's playing with us, he's taunting us, and that's what he's always done. But we knew that in the long run, if we continue to let him do that, that we're going to catch him. And that's the ultimate goal was, of course, put him in behind bars.
We're out here at the southeast corner of the parking lot at the Home Depot. And you see a row of vehicles here, and the next row over is where the employee had parked his truck.
Dana Gouge is a Wichita homicide detective. On January 25, 2005, he's notified about a suspicious package.
The package was actually in the back end of his truck, and that's where he found it.
Scrawled on the outside of the package is the phrase BTK bomb. Thinking it may be a joke, the employee has opened the package. There are no explosives. Detectives access the store's surveillance videotapes.
So there were hours of video on that day while he was working that had to be looked at in order to try to find anything that could be someone making a drop into his pickup truck.
What detectives find is a parking lot surveillance tape recorded at 2:37 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. On it, a black SUV approaches a pickup truck and appears to slow down.
What you're seeing on this particular screen is a black Jeep that's entering the picture there, which will travel across the top of the screen and park next to that vehicle. An individual, it appears, gets out of the vehicle, the Jeep that parks next to the pickup truck, fools around outside of the vehicle, and then gets back into the Jeep and leaves the same way it came in.
Police blow up images of the Jeep, but are unable to ID a tag number. Still, they believe this might very well be a car owned by BTK. It is perhaps their best lead in almost 3 decades of trying.
You're just staring. I stared at that. I must have watched that I don't know how many times, just staring at him, saying, there he is.
As some members of the task force work the vehicle angle, others investigate the contents of the so-called BTK bomb package.
Inside of it, it had a doll and some jewelry, and it also had a note inquiring whether or not he could communicate with the police by floppy disk without us being able to trace it. In fact, he wrote, "Be honest," and asked us to reply through the newspaper to his question.
And of course, we responded by running an ad in the paper, which he asked us to do, basically telling him we can't trace a floppy disk, which we knew, of course, was inaccurate.
Landwehr is willing to live with his lie if it helps catch a serial killer.
Fox KSS 24 got a envelope in the mail, and inside that envelope was a postcard with communication and a purple floppy disk.
Fox Kansas receives a package claiming to be from serial killer BTK.
On February 16, 2005, a local news station receives yet another package from the BTK killer. Inside it, the item police had been hoping for, a computer disk.
They called us when they got it, and some of the task force members went out and picked it up, and they brought it back to our office at the Epic Center.
Detective Randy Stone is a computer expert. He slips the disk into his computer and opens the only file.
It says, "This is a task C3x5 card for details on communication with me in the newspaper."
Stone determines the note was created using Microsoft's Office software.
Knowing that Office has what's called metadata embedded in it, and that was what we were just looking at in the formatting.
The software is registered to a specific user. In a matter of seconds, Detective Stone pulls up that name, as well as information on the author of the note itself.
We could tell that it was somehow affiliated with Christ Lutheran Church and the Park City Community Public Library. And then the next thing we looked at was statistics, and it shows here that was last saved by Dennis. So somehow a Dennis who was affiliated with the church or the library was somehow involved with this document.
Stone searches the internet for a Christ Lutheran Church in Wichita.
And when we do that, we come up with their webpage that has a link to their people affiliated with the church. You click on that link and you go to here. And the only Dennis we found on there was the president of the Congregation Council was Dennis Rader.
In a matter of minutes, one man with a computer has ID'd a suspect and even provided his possible location. Stone turns from his console to receive congratulations from fellow detectives.
You know, I'm sitting there looking at the computer. I know there's people standing behind me. But then I come up with a name and look up Dennis, and I look behind me and there's nobody there anymore because everybody just disappeared.
You know, once we had this information, we were gone.
Wichita detectives hit the street, zeroing in on Dennis Rader's home address.
The last known address was at 6220 Independence, which is in a city just north of Wichita here called Park City.
Detectives Tim Ralph and Clint Snyder race to Park City. Even before they stop the car, the pair get confirmation that Dennis Rader might actually be the killer known as BTK.
As we pull up to about here, we glance up and we can see the Grand Cherokee, the black Jeep Grand Cherokee, parked up in the driveway.
The Cherokee matches the vehicle seen in the parking lot of the Home Depot and linked to BTK.
That was one of those pivotal moments that you just can't describe hardly. It's one of those moments in any investigation where you feel like, okay, this is it. You know, we've got you.
You know, a lot of us, I can speak for myself, still weren't sure originally.
Oh, yeah.
Because we thought this guy can't be, he's setting somebody up. He has to be. But I think the follow-up that was done fairly quickly when we found the Jeep Cherokee sitting in the driveway, that pretty much took away that doubt.
Some detectives want to move in immediately and arrest Rader. Lieutenant Landwehr, however, tells his men in the field to stand down.
He said, come on back. And as Tim and I have discussed many times, that was the hardest drive probably that we've ever had. And the hardest thing we've ever had to do is to put that car back in gear and drive back to Wichita when we think we're 100 yards away from BTK.
I was trying to figure out a way to get the DNA. Since I was going to do the interview, I wanted to be 100% sure when I sat down in the interview that I was talking to BTK.
Lieutenant Landwehr wants to know as much as he can about Rader before moving on the suspect. Investigators begin to turn over the ground in Rader's personal life to see what might lie underneath.
When you look at his lifestyle, I mean, he really didn't fit the profile of a serial killer. I mean, he blended in. You know, the president of his church congregation, Boy Scout leader, you know, lived in the suburbs outside of Wichita. I mean, he blended in.
For a serial killer, blending in is essential, enabling him to kill for years without being detected. Landwehr orders 24-hour surveillance on Rader. Lieutenant Mike Hennessy runs the operation.
It became pretty clear to me that he just acted like an everyday individual. He is a person that had a family, raised a family, apparently, was married, went to a job every day, came home.
We don't want another victim. Of course, after we get the name, that would be a terrible thing to occur. So we're watching real loose surveillance on him. There's so many things that this guy really looks good. He's basically the right age. Everything seems to be falling in line, so we're going to take it very quietly.
Landwehr wants to collect a covert sample of Rader's DNA, but is afraid to approach the suspect and perhaps tip him off. Instead, Landwehr looks to Rader's family.
We'll find out that he has 2 children, and we know that we will be able to get a reverse parent match if we get the DNA from one of those children.
The medical records of Dennis Rader's 27-year-old daughter, Carrie, are subpoenaed, and a tissue sample is sent to the state crime lab in Topeka.
Basically, I get the phone call that the daughter is related to BTK. And at that point, we start writing the search warrants, planning his arrest for the next morning.
Down here at this intersection to the left, we had all of our unmarked vehicles with the arrest team in place.
On February 25, 2005, the BTK task force waits for Dennis Rader to come home for lunch.
And as he came down off of 61st Street and started down this street, the unmarked car with the lights in the grill came up behind him and put on their lights and stopped him right in this area here. And that's when Ray Lundeen from the KBI and Dana Gouge came up and made the arrest.
In the backseat of our car was Lieutenant Landwehr, and got him back. When he opened the door, he was handcuffed, and he bent down, and he looked over, and he said, "Hello, Mr. Landwehr."
Never denying that he's BTK, never denying anything, never asking why we're holding him. It was just, "Hello, Mr. Landwehr," and pretty much resigned right at the fact that, right then, that, well, this is going to be, it's going to be a long day for him.
We will protect your family while you're here. I cannot promise what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day.
It's very difficult to sit across from someone that you chase this long, that you despise the way I despise Dennis Rader.
30 minutes after arresting Rader, Lieutenant Ken Landwehr and FBI agent Bob Morton sit down with their suspect. On the table in front of them is the computer disk traced back to Rader.
When did you type this?
Well, probably would help to have a calendar, but basically,
Again?
Any way you can get out the DNA, right?
You can't get out your DNA unless you've had a total blood transfer and lost every organ. It's there.
He knew that DNA was, he had studied enough that he knew that that was going to be it.
Wouldn't that be a bummer if the BTK copycat confessed and then it didn't match it?
He asked several times that DNA doesn't lie, does it? I said no.
Landwehr and Morton want to talk about murder. Rader, however, wants to talk about the newspaper ad that was his downfall. Rex, it will be okay. A message planted by police for BTK and leading the killer to believe law enforcement could not trace his computer disk.
That's the way they'll catch me, but my job was message the paper said.
Rex, it's okay.
Rex, it's okay.
Yeah, you're right.
He thought that this chase should go on forever and that it should be enjoyable for both of us.
I need to ask you, sure, you like How did you like
Because I was trying to catch you.
I lied to you because I was trying to catch you. And he was incredulous of the fact that I wanted this to end.
Even in a police interrogation room, Dennis Rader seems to relish the game of cat and mouse. For detectives, however, the back and forth quickly grows old.
Why don't you just say it? Say who you are. You're BTK.
I'm BTK, basically that was it. Who are you? Say it. I'm BTK. And after that, the floodgates just open.
Over the next 30 hours, Dennis Rader provides details on the BTK victims police already knew about. Then he tells them about 2 more, victims BTK never took credit for because they were neighbors.
Rader's going to live here right at 6220 Independence. 5 doors down is going to be Marine Hedge. And then, of course, Dolores Davis lived here at 61st and Hillside.
Rader confesses to abducting, strangling, and dumping the bodies of Marine Hedge in 1985 and Dolores Davis in 1991. Both killings share the BTK MO. In the case of Dolores Davis, he covered the victim's face with a painted porcelain mask.
And of course, he had evidence in his home of both of them that he had taken photographs at the death scenes and at the church on Marine Hedge and under the bridge on Dolores Davis.
Hedge and Davis bring the total number of victims to 10, and the story of the BTK killer to its final chapter. One that will be played out before a packed courtroom in Wichita, Kansas.
One of the points of prosecutors is to embarrass Dennis Rader. They have said that before. They want the world to know what kind of a man Dennis Rader is.
In June of 2005, the media descends on Wichita to watch BTK in open court.
I don't know how to exactly say that. I had many, what I call them projects. They were different people in the town that I followed, watched.
For almost an hour, Rader wanders through his past, educating a packed courtroom on the business of a serial killer. He begins with the murder of an entire family.
First of all, Mr. Otero was strangled, or a bag put over his head and strangled. Then I thought he was going down, and I went over and strangled Mrs. Otero. I thought she was down.
He spoke very matter-of-factly, almost as if I'm speaking with you today.
And then I went over to Junior and put the bag on his head. After that, Mrs. Otero woke back up, and she was pretty upset in what's going on. So I came back, and at that point in time, strangled her for a death strangle at that time.
With your hand?
He has no remorse. He was very proud of what he did, and he would have continued to do it, without a doubt.
Josephine woke back up.
What did you do then?
And I took her to the basement and eventually hung her.
Rader often used a ruse to gain his victim's trust. Vicki Wegerly was home with her 2-year-old son when she got a knock on the door. It was BTK, dressed as a telephone repairman.
Did she allow you in?
Yes, she did.
What happened then?
I went over and found out where the telephone was, simulated that I was checking the telephone. I had a make-believe instrument, and after she was looking away, I drew a pistol at her and asked her if she'd go back to the bedroom with me. I told her I was going to have to tie her up. She was very upset, and we fought quite a bit back and forth.
She was physically fighting you?
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
What happened then?
Finally got the hand on her and got a nylon sock and started strangling her.
Dennis Rader describes 10 separate acts of murder and pleads guilty to each. All that remains is Dennis Rader's sentencing and a final day in court.
That the evidence was there earlier, DNA, floppy. There was no way that I was going to get out of this.
He is an individual who has a very deep-seated sexual deviancy, that he is an individual that could not be stopped.
On August 18, 2005, District Attorney Nola Folston explains to the world why Dennis Rader should be put away for the rest of his life.
Even as a child, he got sexually aroused, not as a human being or a normal person would be, by love or attention or emotion, but by violent behavior. Every thought, every breath that he takes is sexually motivated. He lives it, he breathes it, he walks it, he talks it. His life is centered around what he needs sexually.
At Dennis Rader's sentencing hearing, each of the detectives in the task force takes the stand, each offering his own bit of BTK horror. Tim Relf shares the killer's final words to a victim.
He whispered in her ear and he told her that he was BTK. He said that he was a really bad guy.
And then what happened?
He said at that time she started to squirm, and that's when he really, and again he would demonstrate, because he had to hold the buckle down with one hand, and that time he demonstrated that he would have to really pull on the belt at that point.
Lieutenant Ken Landwehr testifies last, providing details on the erotic fantasies that underpin BTK's crimes.
What did Mr. Rader tell you about his need for bondage and why he did what he did?
Well, he was a practitioner of autoerotic activity. Basically, he would dress himself up in victim's clothing. He would put himself into peril at some point in time where there's a heightened fantasy of some hypoxia that would go on in an autoerotic situation. It's very gratifying to be able to show what low level of mentality he has, of what excites him.
Explain that.
Basically, the theory is that because of oxygen deprivation to the brain, because of either putting something over your face where you're not getting oxygen, or you're cutting off the blood supply to the brain, and if this comes at the time of a sexual release, this is supposed to give you a heightened thrill fantasy.
We're going to show a series of photographs taken by Mr. Rader of his self-induced bondage. And he would hang himself from a tree, is that correct?
Yes, he's a pervert. Now, unfortunately, he's a pervert that had sadomasochistic tendencies and finally would revert into killing someone.
Now, this photograph is of a grave. What can you tell us about this?
Basically, it was that he was going to bury a victim because he didn't want his victims to be found at that time and bury them. And he was going to, didn't get that accomplished, and so he went out there to take photographs of himself. But I mean, that was part of his fantasy life. He had a very rich fantasy life that, to be honest, was very juvenile.
So we're talking about not only an individual who commits homicides, but one who is a sexual predator and even more categorized as a pedophile.
After laying out the motive underpinning Rader's crimes, the state turns the court over to family members who get a chance to speak directly to BTK.
Although we have never met, you have seen my face before. It is the same face you murdered over 30 years ago. The face of my mother, Julie Otero.
My mother begged for her life, yet he showed no remorse. He saw that she had a family and a little boy right there in the house with her, yet he continued with his sick plan.
For the last 5,326 days, I have wondered what it would be like to confront the walking cesspool that took my mother's precious life.
Murdering my mother was real personal to me, and I was going to let him know that what's happened since, it's been very personal between Dennis and me.
If I embraced bitterness, I would remind you that you are nothing but a despicable, child-murdering, cowardly, impotent eunuch and pervert masquerading as a human being.
Finally, it is Rader's moment on the stand. He begins with a twisted eulogy of sorts, attempting to draw a bond between himself and those he has killed.
Kathleen Bright, she spent time on her grandparents' farm. Well, I did too, as a kid. I have many fond memories of that. Dolores Davis, she loved animals, and I worked as animal control. I have a great fondness for animals. Joseph Otero was in the Air Force. I was in the Air Force. He was a husband. I was a husband.
That he would even talk about the victims and start comparing himself to them angered me. It was uncalled for, and it just shows you what Dennis Rader is. He's nothing to us.
Then, as if giving an acceptance speech, BTK gives thanks to those who have helped.
Thanks. I can't believe the people that have helped me on this. I think you have to appreciate the police department. They've done a lot of work. Even though it took a long time, they gathered evidence, they had that evidence. When they got the key suspect, they zeroed in on it very rapidly. Defense, we've had our ups and downs, but mostly they've been good. Sarah has probably been my workhorse. Pastor Clark, he has been my main man. For him to stay with me and remain strong, he's a good man. I appreciate that.
He has no remorse. Those tears were for himself. Everybody saw for the first time. The public could finally see exactly what he is. He cares nothing about anyone else.
Rader closes with a final wish for his own salvation.
I am the light of the world. Now that I've confessed, I expect to heal and to have light. And then hopefully someday God will accept me.
Mr. Rader did not turn himself in and go peacefully. Mr. Rader was caught and intended to commit an 11th murder, but for the actions of the Wichita Police Department.
Judge Gregory Waller sentences Dennis Rader to the maximum allowed, 10 consecutive life sentences, and what is known in Kansas as a hard 40, a sentence of 40 years with no possibility of parole. For the families of Rader's victims, a measure of justice after decades of uncertainty doesn't make them whole, but it is enough to begin the healing process.
I had told her I wasn't going to quit until the animal was caught, even though I'd pretty much given up that was ever going to happen. Eventually it was, and in my own small, indirect way, I was a part of that. And so I had a sense of satisfaction to her that I could tell her that, now the animal is in a cage and he won't ever get out.
Yesterday was the first day of the rest of my life. And, I'm going to live it. I'm going to be happy. Because I know this monstrous mother will never see daylight again.
Our first major suspect was that tip.
Lieutenant Ken Landwehr has been chasing a serial killer for 2 decades. Landwehr doesn't pretend to fully understand BTK or what drove him. For the lieutenant, it is enough that the killing days are over.
Dennis Rader is a pedophile. Dennis Rader is a serial killer. And Dennis Rader is where he belongs for the rest of his life.